Game time decision, the baseball preview that you have been waiting for. I know it might seem early, but I don't work Wednesdays. And on Thursday, one, there's no game time decisions, Bracket Central, live from the city. And two, those games start at 1 o'clock anyway, probably 3 o'clock. Sorry, folks that were looking to get to Mets opening day on Thursday. So today on the show, we will go through it all. World Series, MVPs, season-long player props, season-long win totals. Not just myself, Tom Vecchio, Joe Pisapia, Donnie Rightside, and Craig Mish all stop by, as well as, of course, Dave Sharapan for one final scan of the market, which means in this open, we got to make sure we touch base with everything else on tonight's board. We'll open this up with some NFL news. Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys basically making it clear that sooner than later, Dak and Dallas will be no more. What are we doing? I mean, really, how many people have to enter this season in Dallas knowing they're on the hot seat before we just realize that this team shouldn't be booked as a divisional favorite in the NFC East? Factor in nobody repeats in the thing. That is, at the moment, a market that looks soft. It looks like the Eagles should be in front of Dallas. The notion that Dak or McCarthy will have a fire lit under them, nonsense. That fire has always been there. Dallas has always been big-time win or bust. Get back to that NFC title game. They cannot do it, and this is only going to make it worse. I do not like the vibes around the Cowboys. You can say it's March. That's fine. Does anybody think this is going to get better before it gets worse? I highly, highly doubt it. Let's get our radio audience in the fold. Sirius XM, channel 159. Kevin Walsh with you here on SportsGrid. It is a Tuesday night, and it is our baseball preview. But if we open this up, there are, of course, other items to dive into. Your NBA card. It's only 4 games long, but it's a great one. Golden State and Miami. The Warriors trying to hold off the Houston Rockets from supplanting them for that final spot in the play-in. Golden State is desperate, but Miami is trying to catch the Orlando Magic at the moment. And if they can, that is going to shift those Eastern Conference playoffs quite a bit. A lot being played for here. Lakers and Milwaukee, a Giannis AD 25-plus boost at 2-1 looks worth your time. Dallas and Sacramento, the Mavs trying to push up to the 6th seed, which looks especially valuable this year. On one end, it keeps you out of the play-in. And perhaps more importantly, it could draw you the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's not about the Timberwolves being fade material. It's about the injury to Karl Anthony Towns, which leaves Minnesota less than and obviously more vulnerable in that series. OKC and New Orleans do battle with the Thunder, a slight 1-point road favorite. SGA top point score at -130, or the over 29.5 at around -105 look like sizzle plays in that game. Bounce back spot big time for SGA. Let's shoot this over to the NHL card. I mentioned Tom Vecchio will be here. We'll ask him if there's anything on the ice that he likes. But again, we're hitting these baseball futures. Edmonton and Winnipeg, I would argue, is the best game on this board. Some would probably prefer Boston and Florida, the Panthers trying to handle the Bruins. Always good to see Colorado in action there. People keeping tabs on if Nathan McKinnon can secure a point in every home game this season. We talked with Joe Madden yesterday. That number right now listed at +300. We'll bring up the Sweet 16 because, of course, it is still the NCAA's tournament time of year. As I mentioned, on Thursday, Bracket Central is live from New York City. Ben Stevens, Coach James Young, I believe Mike Blewett, potentially in the fold as well. Myself, Donnie, and Coach are back at it Friday night here in New Jersey, getting you set for what will be another round of Sweet 16 action. If you look at some of the storylines that are starting to appear, Duke believers starting to unfold a little bit with that 4.5-point number with Houston. And I feel as if perhaps some Clemson belief coming through as well. This line here at the bottom of that West region, the winner would see, of course, the winner of North Carolina and Alabama. Let's waste no time because the quick pick is going to be my World Series pick. So let's put eyes on the odds to win the World Series. And of course, Ohtani, Mookie, Freddie, Glasnow, Yamamoto, you get it. It's why they're plus 320, the shortest number on the board for the LA Dodgers. The Braves are plus 450. The gap between these teams and everybody else is understandable. The best rosters, the consistent pedigree, the high team totals, when we talk win totals, superstars, MVP winners, Cy Young winners, they have it all. But how do we feel about the buys? Because last year, when we were watching the NLCS, after watching an entire season of the Braves and the Dodgers being better than everybody else in the National League, we were watching Phillies Diamondbacks. And that is something that would keep me off any of these numbers between LA and Atlanta. I can't get there. Not at that short of a price. Because how much value are you going to get if one of those teams wins 110 games? Are they going to be picked to win the World Series? No. It'll be a bit shorter, but not enough. So I had to steer clear of those teams. You then have the Astros and the Yankees rounding out the group that's underneath 14-1, underneath 10-1. I do think the Astros are the best in the AL West. I wouldn't hate a play on their division at a minus price. I don't like the Rangers as much. We'll talk about their win total in a moment. I know there's a lot of love from the Seattle Mariners. We'll talk to Joe Pisapia about that ball club and their stars a little bit later. I don't know if their offense has enough punch. While this Mariners rotation is incredible, the Astros always have pitching. So is it going to be enough to get through for Seattle? We shall see. The team that I'm going to bet is right here in the middle with the Baltimore Orioles at 14-1. Now, this for me there's a few things that we can do with this number, and that's going to be the quick pick again, the Orioles to win the World Series. First of all, they have 2 Cy Young candidates and 2 MVP candidates. And there's not a lot of teams that's true of. But with acquiring Corbin Burnes and pairing him with Grayson Rodriguez, legitimately 2 guys that could take down the Cy Young. What that really means is when we get to the playoffs, you trust that front-end rotation. The Mariners are phenomenal. Are you sure you prefer Castillo and a lot of people will go back and forth, right? If it's Gilbert as their second starter there for that baseball team, more though than Burnes and Rodriguez? I'm not so sure. And I think Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson are both legit MVP candidates, especially Gunnar Henderson, tied for the 7th best odds in the American League's MVP market. They check those boxes. If this team gets in, they don't win the AL East, that's fine. We just talked about it. The buys haven't been that valuable. But if this team is as good as they were last year, a 100-win baseball team, this number will be cut in half, if not more. The books will have no choice but to believe if they do it again. We have a lot to get to. Baseball futures keep flying next on Game Time Decisions.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
That was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead,
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee, making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. Game Time Decisions. It is a Tuesday night. It is the Baseball Futures Show. World Series picks already on the board. Baltimore Orioles, 14-1. We have 4 win totals, 2 MVPs, 1 in each league, 4 season-long player props straight, and then some plus money opportunities in the players market as well. We'll get to those players in hour number 2. Let's make sure we fly through these win totals. My favorite of the bunch, the Atlanta Braves, under 101.5. The Braves are awesome. They are incredible. Last year's win total, 96.5. Why do we have 5 wins? For Chris Sale. It's an overreaction. They were incredible last year. 104 wins. They didn't fly past this number. Notably, despite everyone it felt like having career years, Ronald Acuna Jr. can repeat as NL MVP and not have as good of a season as he did last year. That's the best you'll probably ever see from him because that was a all-time great season from Acuna Jr. Matt Olson had the best year of his career. Marcelo Zuna was the best he's been since 2017. Ozzie Albies the best ball of his career. Austin Riley, admittedly, probably still has another level to go. If you wanted to sprinkle on an NL MVP, I don't hate it. But this is one of those teams that if they just see guys go from the very best version of themselves to still an all-star, we get this under. And I also think you take a look at this National League East, and there's juice on all of these clubs. Yes, I'm looking at you, Washington Nationals. I don't hate that baseball team. I don't. The Miami Marlins have pitching. The Mets have hitting. And the Philadelphia Phillies have more pitching than they've had in recent seasons. I trust that rotation a bit more. And I think that lineup, with a full year of Trey Turner being great and a full season of Bryce Harper being excellent, could surprise. And I'm not here fading them to win this division because they could go under this number and still win that division. I wouldn't pay the price that it is, but 101.5 is too high. This is also a team that was incredibly healthy last year. Acuna Jr., Olsen, and Riley playing all but 6 possible games combined between the 3 of them. It's one of those situations where it's just how it levels out. It's why so often win totals of this nature go under. A lot of people like that Dodgers under just trying to sell high, and I get it. Good start in the Soul Series. A 1-1 split, you'll take that every time. I'm doing the same thing here with the Atlanta Braves, under 101.5. It's a lot of unders here. And the next is the World Series champs, the Texas Rangers. An 82.5 is up to an 88.5. You want to bump a team for winning a World Series? I got you. If you tell me that DeGrom and Scherzer are the best 1-2 punch in baseball, I'd question that due to age and injury concerns. But just know that that wouldn't be relevant until summer. Neither one of them are right now. So this is not the team that you'll be betting on come October. Not close to it. And I know that everybody loves the rookies in Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter. But forgive me if I'm hesitant on both of them hitting. Consider that Langford under 24.5 home run prop. Consider Evan Carter's under 15.5 home run prop as well. And if one hits, the other could miss. It's just how it goes at times for rookies. These guys can stumble out of the gates. And if you look at that lineup, Corey Seager is a lock all-star. Is anybody else? I mean, Adolis Garcia has a ceiling. Langford has a ceiling. Simeon, maybe. But realistically, I look at that and there's one bankable pure all-star in that lineup, and it's going to be Corey Seager. But beyond that, I have questions. And if the Astros remain their dominant self, and the Astros probably have a little bit of a bounce back in them, and if the Mariners deliver on everything that people anticipate, that's going to take wins away from the Texas Rangers. I'm playing them under 88.5. I'm also playing the Royals under their listed win total at 74.5. This one with some controversy in the room. People like Kansas City, and I get it. There is plenty to like about this baseball team. You know, I talk about betting the Orioles to win a World Series because they have multiple Cy Young candidates and multiple MVP candidates. Well, the Kansas City Royals check that box in a half. They have an MVP candidate in Bobby Witt. They got a Cy Young candidate in Cole Reagans. No doubt about it. But this is a team whose win total last year was 68.5. They ended up winning 56 games. And now we have a win total checking in at 74.5. So they went under the win total by 12, and they upped the win total by 6. I know they made a lot of additions this offseason. I understand that Bobby Witt has another level he could probably get to. Well, he's going to need to. This team's going to have to add about 20 wins year over year in order to get to 74.5. And if you, by the way, because if you're playing a win total over, you usually like a team to get through it a bit more comfortably. Let's put this team at 81 wins. That's 25 wins we're tacking on here, if not more. Am I doing the math correct off the top of the head? I think I am. 25 wins. That is a ton of wins. Make sure you pair those Royals win totals with that Bobby Witt AL MVP price, because you're going to need him right in the thick of that thing and then some, most likely. The last one's going to sound a bit odd. It's one of a kind. When we do NFL win totals, we go through full schedules, right? Because we can. There's 17 games there. Imagine I sat here and just went through those team schedules. You can't do it. Because at the end of the day, over $1.62, it's not how it works. But if I isolate it to the end of April, it's a little different. If I take a team's first 30 games, it's a little different. And I'm going to fade the Milwaukee Brewers over their first 30 games. A DraftKings market record at the end of April, I'm going under 13.5 wins for the Milwaukee Brewers. They just lost Devin Williams, arguably the best closer in baseball. And when you consider how Milwaukee wants to win, close games, get it to the bullpen, that's a nightmare. Because everybody else is worse automatically. Now your 9 guys worse, your 8-inning guys worse, your 7th-inning guy is worse. Because you had to drop everybody down to fill in for Devin Williams. And this is the key. Devin Williams will be back at some point. It's going to be a while. But he won't play any of these games. So I'm getting a full Devin Williams absence here on this under 13.5. And I also get to take advantage of this team's beginning games without Craig Counsell. You know, I considered a Cubs 35-1 World Series ticket. I considered it. I couldn't get there. Number wasn't long enough, admittedly. But part of that is Craig Counsell, who's been incredible during his time in Milwaukee. He's made the playoffs in 5 of the last 6 years. Now they're without Counsell. So if there's going to be any stumbling out of the opening blocks there, that's the exact time to attack. But now I mention the schedule. Here are the opening series that exist inside this window. You tell me how many you believe the Milwaukee Brewers would be favored in. At the Mets for 3 games. I don't think so. Home against the Twins. Don't think so, for 2. Home against the Mariners for 3. Certainly not. At the Reds for 4. No. At the Orioles for 3. No. At the Cardinals for 3. No. Home against the Padres for 3. Maybe. Probably not. At the Pirates for 4. A split. Home against the Yanks for 3. No. Home against the Rays for 2 of a 3-game series inside this window. This is going to be an under 13.5. This team will be lucky to put 10 wins up on the board to open up their season. We are running against the break here, though. on Game Time Decisions. We're going to still go through all these wagers, okay? We're going to talk some MVPs. I'm going to see what Tom Vecchio thinks about these markets here, see if there's any value for him. You know, Tom last year had some great season-long bets on players, and I'm sure he's going to have those same type of wagers heading into this season. Mentioned it already. We're going to talk to Joe Pisapia. Two teams he's very high on, the Seattle Mariners and the Atlanta Braves. Excited to get his thoughts on those ball clubs. Excited to talk to Donnie Rightside. I'll tell you right now, nobody better. Nobody better. Day-to-day betting Major League Baseball. Getting those lineups up and being able to knock it down. Consistently, DRS provides. And he'll be able to do that all season long on the early line. So this is a situation where we've got a lot loaded up for you here tonight. And I'm excited to go through it all. Now, admittedly, I'm frozen. And that's all I know. And I'm going to guess we're running up against a break pretty soon. But if I'm at any point vanishing, just know we're going to be back and continuing to break down what we've got going on here on SportsGrid, on Game Time Decisions, live on a Tuesday night, talking Major League Baseball with you here on GTD.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, you know, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
My God, that was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats and fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're live on SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions. We're with you on a Tuesday, hitting our Major League Baseball preview show because the next time I'm with you, I really won't even be allowed to talk baseball because it'll be a Friday night bracket central, and that's a crime. Tom Vecchio, one of the best, who will be with us throughout this baseball season. Tom, appreciate you joining us here on this Tuesday.
Thanks for having me. Baseball season is around the corner. I have some interesting takes on some players. I know you have a few futures out there in terms of the MVP market. I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to rip through those after, though, we talk through some of your guys here. And you have some pitcher props that you're playing towards the under. Both in the strikeout market here. One will hit close to home. Somebody from this Yankees staff that you're fading.
Yeah, that's going to be Nestor Cortez under 139.5 strikeouts for the entire season. And, he said it hits close to home. I am a Yankees fan as well. But we want to look at things just as objectively as possible. And last year, he absolutely wasn't healthy. He only pitched 63 innings, and he had 67 strikeouts, which is good. Year before that, 163 strikeouts and 158 innings. He's a mid-20s pitcher in terms of strikeout rate, mid-20s, 25, 25.6, somewhere around there. Ultimately, the health combined with the fact that he isn't a super dominant pitcher on the mound is really what I'm focusing in on. I'm also trying to add in a little bit of the fact that, Garrett Cole isn't healthy. What happens if Cortez runs into the slightest bit of an issue? I have a feeling that they're going to try and pull him back so not to strain their staff overall. And ultimately, he misses a few starts. That throws off the projection massively. And, a pitcher that's going to be averaging 5-6 strikeouts, he's never going to be pushing to 9 or 10 on a nightly basis like Strider or someone else or Glasnow. He's a 5-6 kind of pitcher strikeout per night. So I'm not just super confident in him or the team overall this year.
I had a feeling that the injuries would be mentioned at some point during the breakdown because it was one of those things where anywhere you go to listen to kind of just some of the baseball stuff, when it comes to pitchers, there's always the if he stays healthy. I, because I'm a fool, have bets on Byron Buxton and Mike Trout I'll get to, right? And those, of course, just don't do that, Tom. But I know what I'm getting myself into. When you bet a pitcher, it's the same situation whether they have the injury history or not. It's just the nature of the position. Right. And it's what's created a lot of hesitancy for me on pitcher-related markets. I have one pitcher prop. We'll get to it, and it's an under. And it's why I pulled back. I still might end up betting the Yamamoto Rookie of the Year thing. We'll talk about it in a moment. There's another, though, high-end guy that you're fading, Tom. Tell us why.
Yeah, that's Zach Gallen, under 192.5 strikeouts. I think Gallen's a phenomenal pitcher, but if we dig into just a little bit, last year I'm going to say was a career year for him. That was his ceiling outcome where he had 220 strikeouts and 210 innings. We look at his strikeout rate. It was 26.6, 26.9, and then 26 last season. So it is slightly trending down. He had a 14.3% strikeout rate in spring training, which obviously is a super small sample size. We have to take it with a grain of salt. The problem I'm looking at when I get to Gallen is he has to be exactly as efficient as he was last year while pushing to essentially 200 innings this year, which I don't think is going to be happening for Gallen. They have a stronger pitching staff. And again, I think they want to scale him back for him to be ready for the playoffs, to think a spot that they can get to again. Right? They don't need to push him in order to make the playoffs. They should have the stability to say, we are in the playoffs. He doesn't need to go out there for 7 innings every night. We can kind of scale him back. So if he's the slightest bit inefficient with the strikeout rate trending down as we saw the past few seasons, this is going to be razor thin for him to hit 193 strikeouts. And again, factor in one missed start because of an injury, I'll simply take the under.
And this is, to me, I didn't love the Diamondbacks based on what I was looking through here. I didn't fall in love with the Giants either, which I know people have. I got tempted by the Padres. I pulled back. I think the National League as a whole is so fascinating because you have those two top dogs, and then it could just be open season.
Yeah.
And I know if it's open season, that means it's the Phillies and then whoever else takes advantage because this is what the Phillies, apparently do. But, man, if Gallen isn't Gallen, that Diamondbacks team looks way, way different. And I think that it's ironically enough, and I know the Diamondbacks put that run together, Tom, they're not that dissimilar from the Royals, right? Bobby Witt, Corbin Carroll, and then Reagans and Gallen. There's other differences there, but in terms of what gets people to buy into a Diamondbacks ball club is Gallen and Carroll as a starting point there, and that's where the Royals are at. It just makes for an interesting situation. Let's talk about the Royals, and let's talk about Bobby Witt Jr., because everybody tells me the guy's a superstar. and the numbers certainly suggest it. How are you looking to back Bobby Witt?
Yeah, that's Bobby Witt to lead the league in hits this year at 18-1. Last year, I nailed Matt Olson at 28-1 to lead the league in home runs. So I'm trying to run it back this year with a little bit of a safer option. I guess hits are that much easier. Last season, he had a 17.4% strikeout rate, which is awesome. He did have a 218 ISO, which is obviously great, but the power's not necessarily something we need to be looking at. His ex-WOBA, his batting average, ex-slugging, we're all in the 91st percentile or higher. He needs to cut down a little bit on his chasing pitches. He's projected, when you look on Fangraphs, whether you look at Steamer or Zips or the bat, he's projected to have about 171, 172 hits. That puts him within their season-long standings and projections, puts him about 4th, 5th, 6th, depending on what you're looking at. So I like to look at that, and then let's say we apply 10% variance to it on the upside. That puts him at about 187 hits, which would put him in 3rd if we look back to last year's standings. And if you can push past that to get to close to 200 hits, that should put him in contention for the league lead. So Bobby Witt to lead the league in hits at 18-1.
So, look, I like the look, certainly wouldn't fade it, but I want to take this then to ask you about the guy that I'm right now betting to win AL MVP, that's Vladdy Jr. And through the projections that I look through, as many as I can, he seems pretty comfortably he'll be top 5 in hits in the American League this season. Right. And we know Vladdy can bring a big power bump, and he's been very durable as a member of the Blue Jays. And I thought that 21-1, 22-1 price was worth it. A guy in front of him like Mike Trout, who, again, I know I'm high on Trout, but we think about, viability in this market. You'd probably rather hold Vladdy. Yordan Alvarez might be the single best hitter in baseball. I worry about a DH ever taking down this award. And it's just those simple things that I looked at it, and I thought Vladdy presented some value here. Let's not forget, if it wasn't for Ohtani, who is an outlier, once-in-a-lifetime player, Vladdy would have won this award 3 years ago. And if Vladdy Jr. had won this award as recently as 3 years, he would not be this number. So I think there's value on him at 22-1, Tom, to win American League MVP.
Yeah, ultimately I'm fine with it. Like, the issue I have with some of these things, if another player could match his stats and they also win a Gold Glove, that player is always going to be considered better, right? Where I've always made the case that Arenado for the Cardinals should always be in the MVP conversation because he has awesome offensive stats and he's always going to have that Gold Glove in his back pocket. So why are we not considering him to be one of the best? So if another player can match what Vladdy does on offense at the plate, but he's also going to be having a Gold Glove, that's just going to be the default to go to that player that has that extra thing. So I have a tough time backing players like you said. Rodon might be the best hitter, but if he's not playing the field, I can't necessarily get behind that.
And I think what's interesting for me, though, right, is that Yordan is more than half the number of Vladdy. So that's why, I went back, not way back. This isn't a 100-1 ticket, but I went back a bit kind of in it. And I think what's interesting about Arenado is, I don't think it was last year. I think it was 2 years ago, if that's when Goldie won it. Arenado was right there, neck and neck for wins above replacement, and odds-wise was never in the mix. I think the defensive WAR matters. It helps bump up the overall number, but the counting stats are always still likely going to be what drives this award. And I think, the back of the baseball card for Vladdy Jr. can look as good as anybody in the American League. I want to ask you, Tom, about another American leaguer that you're betting from the Texas Rangers, and that's Adolis Garcia. What are you looking for here?
That's for over 31.5 home runs. One of my favorite players to watch. He had a massive 263 ISO last year, which is absolutely fantastic. He's been at 31, 27, and then 39 home runs last year. He has an insane amount of power. His baseball savant page is off the chart in terms of barrel rate, contact rate, hard hit rate, exit velocity, you name it. The issue with Garcia is he strikes out a lot, right? Where he swings and misses a ton, but when he makes contact, that ball can go a mile. And I also like to factor in a little bit of what I talked about last year with Matt Olson is Garcia is always going to be in a good spot to hit because that lineup is loaded, so they can never pitch around him because Marcus Simeon's on base, Corey Seager's on base, then he comes up the bat, and Evan Carter's behind him, whatever it might be. Like, he's always going to see good pitches, so the power upside for him is so clear. And when we have this amount of underlying metrics, if you can cut down on the strikeout instead of being at 27 or 28%, if you can cut that down to 24%, he could push to 40 home runs. So over for Garcia this year.
Are you giving him a chance in the overall home run lead?
He's at 40-1 for that. Like, I don't mind taking a sprinkle on that. And I think if you actually look at that market in reverse, if you think a player can lead the league in home runs, you should just take the over on their home run total, because it's not like he's going to lead the league with home runs with 30. So if you're working backwards, that's just an example. I wouldn't go from Garcia to the league lead. I would go from the league lead back to the player I would have interest in. And that might be J-Rod.
You're betting J-Rod?
He's probably one of my longer shots I would go with.
I found J-Rod very interesting. I promise I'm not trying to be hot takey. We're going to talk some J-Rod in a moment here with Joe Pisapia. It's just, he had a 6-week run where he was untouchable. And outside of that, it was not that great. And if that was, the whole beginning wasn't great, Tom, and then he finished amazing, I wouldn't be bringing this up. But he was pitiful all September. And if J-Rod is not the all-star that everybody thinks he's going to be, I think it's interesting to see where the Mariners ultimately land. But we know he's a superstar and projects out as one. Tom, appreciate it. We'll talk a ton of baseball this year. Best of luck.
Yeah, same to you. Can't wait to be here.
All right, awesome stuff. We're going to talk to Joe Pisapia next about Julio Rodriguez, the Mariners, and more next.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
That was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee, making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats and fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions continues right here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh, you see Joe Pisapia is set to join us here and get you set for the Major League Baseball season. Nobody better. Of course, you can catch Joe on FST as well as the Fantasy Baseball Black Book. He does it for both baseball and football. Joe, I appreciate you making some time for us here.
I'm very excited to be with you, Kevin Walsh. You and I never get to spend any quality time together, so we're going to spend some quality baseball time, cleanse the palate of all this basketball stuff going on, and finally dig deep into opening day.
Yeah, get people excited. The opening day, that Thursday, where people will start betting baseball around noon and then into the college games, that will be a glorious day. But before that, people like to bet futures. And, Joe, I've seen some of the stuff you're on, and it seems like two teams really stand out for you. Let's start in the American League. If you go to that AL MVP market, it's Soto, it's Judge. And for a lot of bettors, that has to be tempting because you have two great hitters on the baseball team, which maybe is my New York bias, but I think that Yankees name still holds weight. But if you're willing to fade either one of them, then you're starting 10-1 or better, and it looks like you are willing to fade Soto and Judge at the top.
Well, look, fantasy is one thing. Awards and wagering and futures is another, right? We're talking about building narratives here. It's not just about stats. So already the Yankees off to a tough start here with the Garrett Cole injury. Typically, your MVPs come from teams that have really good records. Now, I don't want to sour your excitement about the Yankee season, but Yankees are a very public team. Without Garrett Cole at the top of that rotation, what does that Yankee rotation really look like? Marcus Stroman doesn't want to take the ball opening day. Carlos Rodon is at an iffy spring at best. The rest of this rotation is very suspect, and I think it's really hard to see the Yankees really pulling away from the pack necessarily in the East because of it. So instead, I'm going to go west. I'm going to go look at Julio Rodriguez because I'm looking at Julio Rodriguez at 10-1 in most spots here as a guy that if you look at him last year, had Ohtani actually been traded like the Angels should have done and recouped all of that assets that they could have actually gone and gotten away with before the injury happened, Julio Rodriguez had a shot to be MVP last year at the end of the year. That's how good he was. If this guy could ever get off to a good start of the season, just an average one instead of a below average, which is what happened the last 2 years, Julio Rodriguez is a guy that could challenge for a not just 30-30, but we're talking 40-40 kind of potential. He's that good of a player, and I think the Mariners could be just one big bat away from really being the team to beat in the American League altogether because of that rotation. The rotation leads to wins. Wins lead to good publicity, lead to a good narrative, and Julio is one of the bright young stars in the American League.
And what seems to be jumping out now for a lot of people is that ability to provide power and speed. And I think this is evolution. This is how it works in the NBA and football, and it's happening more in baseball. The guys at the top can do both. And Acuna, who we'll talk more about in a moment here, obviously, we know last year did both at an incredibly high level. But to stick with the Mariners, you mentioned the Cole injury. It really opens things up in that Cy Young race there. And where's your eye in it?
Well, look, when you're looking at the American League Cy Young, I think it is a little bit open for interpretation. You got people who are looking a lot potentially at Corbin Burns. That's a very easy one with Baltimore being as good as they were last year. And we'll see. Maybe Burns is the guy to beat now with Cole on the shelf. But I keep coming back to Seattle. So that's going to be a theme here of what we're doing. And this rotation is so good and so deep, especially at the top where you got George Kirby, who is certainly in this. You're getting great odds on Kirby. But Luis Castillo should not be overlooked. He was quietly, I think, one of the better pitchers last year. Everyone's talking about Gossman's already, and again, another shoulder issue. We're kind of waiting on him. With so many injuries right now, I want the guy that's healthy. And I think there's potential for a guy like Castillo, like I said, to approach that 17, 18 win mark, and that would be huge. I know wins are overrated, but it's still something the older voters like to look at. But Luis Castillo, again, you go down George Kirby also. Both those guys, I think, are very much in this mix. And if you go through the rest of this depth of the rotation, it's very good. Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, who came on strong last year, Bryce Miller, young pitcher. So you look at the five deep that they've got out there. It's very good. Minnesota's got a pretty good rotation too. But when you're starting to look around here, I'm really focusing on Seattle. And I think they've got a great opportunity to pull down a couple of these awards and a couple of the big ones in the American League.
Yeah, again, and if you're willing to, go against the top, it creates value. But again, the top doesn't even exist here. Can I ask you, Joe, what are you expecting from the Garrett Cole situation? I saw somewhere a 25-1 price on him to win Cy Young. Obviously, would never be near that if he was starting the year. Is it just completely up in the air for one of the most valuable baseball players really in this entire sport?
I don't think it's up in the air. I think it's completely off the board for me anyway, because again, how is he going to get to that cumulative? Let's say things go great. For once in Major League Baseball with an elbow injury, things go great. It would be the first time, but it's the first time for everything, Walsh. So maybe that does happen. And if it does happen, okay, that's a tremendous thing. But you're still what? Maybe 1 to 2 months behind everybody else in terms of cumulative stats. Now, Garrett Cole was tremendous last year. So maybe things do go in a good direction. You never know. Stranger things have happened. But it's not something I'm investing in. I think it's crazy to do that. So personally, I'm out when it comes to Garrett Cole. And you're already seeing these pitching injuries before we even get off to the start of the season. We only know there's more to come because it happens every single year.
If we flip it over to the National League, Joe, in the MVP race, it's Acuna Jr. against every Dodger in that lineup. And in the Cy Young race, it's another Brave at the top. That's Spencer Strider. And those seem to be two guys that you're lining up.
They are, and up until a few days ago in this Ohtani scandal nonsense, I was very much in on Ohtani. Now, normally I fade away from teams like the Dodgers who have the multiple stars on it. We really see they cannibalize each other in the voting. That's always a tough one to separate when you have a Freeman, you have a Betts, you have all this talent. So Ohtani, to me, not pitching every fifth day, just focusing on being the stud hitter he is. He has the opportunity to hit 50, 60 home runs, steal 20 bases, be that guy, that larger-than-life presence, and a team that could possibly win 100 games. But all of a sudden, I think, especially because it's a betting situation here, there is going to be a negative with a lot of those old school voters. You have to remember it's a media award. And no matter what comes of the press conferences or what comes of investigations, there's going to be this cloud that follows him. So no matter how great he is, I do think it's going to hurt him in the voting. So unfortunately, I am going to come back to Acuna in this. And I think Acuna continues to be that guy in his prime. And we see this often, Kevin. There's those years where it's the Mike Trout years. There were the years where it was the Barry Bonds years, the Roger Clemens years. There's windows where the voting public falls in love with a player until they fall out of love with them, and then they start looking for somebody else to fall in love with. Right now, we're in the Acuna phase of love. And Spencer Strider, it really is whether or not he stays healthy. If he stays healthy, he is going to have a ridiculous amount of strikeouts. You should bet him right now while it's still in plus money to lead the league. If he gets hurt, then it becomes open season. But right now, I am looking very much at Spencer Strider, despite the fact he's the favorite, because it really is Strider and everybody else when it comes to the National League Cy Young right now.
Yeah, Strider, the counting numbers are just almost impossible to compete with. And, Joe can speak to this more than I can, but I've seen things that people say it looks like he might strike out more batters this season based on some of the spring stuff. So, I mean, I can only imagine, Joe, on a day-to-day basis, or not day-to-day, but on a start-to-start basis, what a Spencer Strider strikeout prop's even going to look like. Could we see a double-digit number for this guy?
You could. I think early on it's going to be really interesting, depending on how deep he goes into games, the opportunity to ladder bet them. Sim, maybe if you get it at an 8 or 8.5 or something like that, you bet the 9.5, you bet the 10, you bet all the way up to maybe 12 or maybe even 13 some days. There's opportunities when it comes. We were very good with this last year when we had the opportunities on my show on YouTube about ladder betting some of these strikeout props. We crushed it with Gossman on that 14 strikeout night last season. I think Strider, there's a lot of those opportunities, but it's going to be early in the season because eventually Vegas will catch up, and eventually it's going to be too high a number where you start to go the opposite way, where it's probably better to look for the unders because, when you set that number at 11 some nights, I think it's going to be really tough even for him to achieve.
Now, as far as, kind of fading the Dodgers, and all these numbers are very, very short, there's one market that has early caught my attention. I'm still maybe a touch undecided on, but it's NL Rookie of the Year. And it's almost simple. Yamamoto has top 5 odds to win Cy Young. If he has any chance to do that, he probably wins Rookie of the Year. Yamamoto has a start under the belt as we're having this discussion, and that did not go well. Did that send shivers down the spine? Were you already interested in fading Yamamoto potentially heading into that NL Rookie of the Year race?
Well, to say it didn't go well would be an understatement. And it has also been the spring of Yamamoto, which also has been a little checkered so far. Instead, there's another Japanese pitcher who has 19 strikeouts so far, just a few walks, and Shoto Imanaga of the Cubs, which, by the way, I think the Cubs should not be overlooked to possibly win the National League Central this year. Getting Cody Bellinger back in this lineup is huge. Imanaga, the left-handed guy at the top of that rotation, along with Justin Steele, it's a really good team. The odds on him right now, plus 1,600, are incredible. I'm not saying he's the lock. He's my favorite of the kind of the longer shot guys. You can't dismiss guys like Jackson Churio. This is a very special rookie class, though, because you've got some guys who are a little older, like Lee, like Imanaga, like Yamamoto, but you've also got guys on the other end of the spectrum, too. Junior Caminero is going to be up sooner than later. Wyatt Langford led the league in everything this spring. He has been unbelievable so far on the American League side. And then, of course, you've got the Jackson Churios, the Jackson Holidays, the Jackson Merrills, everyone named Jackson. So this could be a rookie class like we haven't seen since the mid-'80s, like in '86, when you had Bonds and Bonilla and Mark McGuire and all those guys and Bo Jackson all in the same class. It was an incredible year for rookies. You could see a generationally good year for them this season. That's how good this class is.
And you mentioned the American League side of it, Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter at the top there. That's always the baseball thing. You get more familiar with a guy, and then all of a sudden he's still eligible to win Rookie of the Year. I'm used to people talking about cannibalization with, like you said, MVP awards, maybe a Cy Young. Rarely do we see two guys from the same team enter the years 1 and 2 and favored to win a market here, Joe.
Very rarely do you see that, but this is one of those cases where, kind of learning this with the Baltimore Orioles, too. Certain organizations are just flush with prospects. I've always been a Langford guy over Carter. Carter's frame worries me holding up over 162 game season personally. And Wyatt Langford has just crushed everything from NCAA, or maybe even from Little League to NCAA to all of the minor league levels he just shot through last year. Langford, to me, is a guy, you see it in late drafts, too. He has just skyrocketed up the ADP. And I think from a investment standpoint, it's hard not to like him as the favorite so far going into the year.
Joe, before we let you go, are there one, maybe even two season-long player prompts that you've found a lot of value on when you kind of project out this season?
Yeah, I think when you're looking far out there, Matt Olson to lead the league in home runs. The guy hit 50-plus last year. Ohtani's an interesting one, too. I just wonder about the cloud around him. But you're getting plus 900 on him. Spencer Strider at plus 145 to lead the league in strikeouts, also a good one. And I would really just, again, I always pick a theme. I always pick a team that I think is right there. I think the Seattle Mariners at 20-1 to win the World Series, and they have a great opportunity to win the American League, too, at plus 900. The Seattle Mariners are a team that's one bat away. If that bat is Eloy Jimenez, if that bat is Pete Alonso, they're going to make a deal. They have the prospects to do it. You put one more bat to protect Julio Rodriguez, lengthen that lineup. The Seattle Mariners could be a lot to handle because of the depth of that pitching and what they might be able to do with Julio winning MVP.
It is a very good point that the best teams are not done yet with what their rosters will look like when we get actually to the playoffs. That is Joe Pisapia. Again, Fantasy Sports Today does a great job, as well as that Fantasy Black Book, because I know a lot of you are going to try and sneak drafts in with about 48 hours to go, so make sure you have it locked in. More Game Time Decisions continues on SportsGrid after this quick break.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. It's not going to happen.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
My God, that was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead,
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee, making that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Baseball Future Show continues here on SportsGrid. Great stuff from Joe Pisapia. We talked through the Vladdy AL MVP bet with Tom Vecchio. Let's hit the NL MVP bet. 22-1 on Vladdy Jr., 22-1 on Trey Turner of the Philadelphia Phillies in the National League. Trey Turner, before he got to Philly, take his 2 seasons. One of them fully in L.A., the other was split between Washington and L.A. Let's round up, okay? 312 batting average, 25 homers, 30 steals, 9 RBIs, 104 runs. That is an MVP-ish player. Last year, why was it not as good? Because he struggled for a while as a Philly. On August 3rd, his batting average was .235 for the year. It was a nightmare. He finished with a .266. Because what happened over the next 48 games was probably the single hottest player in baseball. Here is what Trey Turner's 48-game stretch to close out the season, the regular season, averaged out over 162 looks like. 342 batting average, 54 home runs, 142 runs scored, 142 RBIs, and 30 steals. That's unanimous MVP. He's not going to do that, okay? But it did continue up, by the way, throughout the playoffs, all right? Where you got him still hitting 347, 3 homers, 5 RBIs in that 17-game window, stole 4 bags. Trey Turner checks the boxes. If you take what he gave this team over those 61 games, playoffs included, he is a runaway MVP. He might not give you that, but Trey Turner this season, giving this team a .320 batting average, competing for that batting crown, hitting 30-plus home runs, stealing 40-plus bags, is absolutely on the board. And at 22-1 in a market who has a favorite of Acuna, who might have some injury concerns, and then 3 guys that all play for the same team in Ohtani, Freeman, and Betts, who maybe eat up each other a little bit, it creates value everywhere else. Give me 22-1 on Trey Turner. We go to some more season-long wagers in less than a minute right here on Game Time Decisions. Game Time Decisions live on a Tuesday night, our baseball futures show. We're going to get through as many of the season-long player wagers as we can. We'll hit some of those with Dave Sharapan coming up in this hour. We're going to talk to Craig Mish, the outlook on some of these clubs, talk a little bit about Blake Snell going to the Giants, the New York Yankees as well. And we'll also talk to Donnie Rightside in 20 minutes or so on this show. Nobody better getting you set for the day-to-day betting of Major League Baseball, which begins on Thursday. Let's talk some season-long wagers. Told Tom Vecchio I've got some Byron Buxton and some Mike Trout. Laughed at me. Now listen, it was of course with respect, but I'm well aware of the injuries and the concerns around Byron Buxton. But so are the books. I'm taking him over 23.5 home runs. This is not a number that Byron Buxton needs to play 150 games to clear. Let's take a look at his last 3 seasons. In 61 games, he hit 19 home runs on a 105-game pace. 105, which is way more than 50 games missed. That's 33 home runs. In 2022, 92 games, 28 home runs. Hit the prop in 92 games. That is a 32 home run pace over 105 games. Last year, 85 games, 17 home runs, 21 homers. Just misses it. Again, I'm keeping a 105-game pace. Why did he miss it? He was a 207 hitter. He had off-season surgery and says he's feeling as good as he has in quite some time. I know the back tightened up on him the other day. As long as the knees stay fine, that is key. There's a guy who's talked about wanting to steal more. I don't mind if you touch that 100-to-1 MVP number. We know the high end of Byron Buxton's a 40-40 guy. That's the high end of Byron Buxton. This is the low end. This is a 110 games, 25 home run season from Byron Buxton. It's worth a shot here. Give me his over. Give me Seiya Suzuki of the Chicago Cubs over 20.5 home runs. Oh, by the way, on Byron Buxton, I went through a lot of projections here. Fangraphs had 7 different available. Looked through some other models there. 6 out of 7 on Fangraphs have Byron Buxton over this number. As far as Seiya Suzuki goes, 7 of 7 have him over 20.5 home runs. Last year he hit 20, but he was red hot post break. In about 20 less games post All-Star break, in 67 total, he had 13 home runs compared to 7 in the first half, where he was a .313 hitter during that stretch. In spring this season, tearing the cover off the baseball, 6 home runs and batting over .450. I mentioned it. I think the Cubs could be sneaky this season with Craig Counsell in the fold, with Seiya Suzuki taking a step forward, Justin Steele leading the charge in that rotation. But maybe they're not as sneaky as I thought. I thought their number would be a bit lighter, so ultimately I backed off some of those big-time Cubs futures. They are round picked to make the postseason, which I don't mind because I don't love the NL West. I think a lot of people think that the Central is only a one playoff team. I think the Cubs win the Central, but if they don't, they could still get in as a wild card team. Sticking in the Central, Hunter Green under 9.5 wins. This is a situation where we talked about this with Tom Vecchio, but playing unders for season-long wagers is something that if you can do it on a pitcher, you're going to feel a little bit more comfortable about. 6 of 7, we had him at 9. An additional one had him at 9 as well. But this is a whole other scenario here. 46 career starts for Hunter Green, 9 total wins. The Reds are supposed to be better. How much better? And even if they're better, is Hunter Green going to take the necessary steps forward? I know he has a lot of potential. I know he's a great strikeout guy. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a great wins guy. Guess who's been awful in spring again? Hunter Green. His ERA is above a 7 right now. If Hunter Green didn't have so much already invested in him by his high-level draft choices this franchise, there's a world that they don't have him on their opening day rotation. That's how bad he's been. This is a team with expectations. But what that also means is there's a world where Hunter Green gets moved around. If he's continuously getting rocked, I don't see any path here for Hunter Green to get over 9.5 wins. We're playing that number under. Radio audiences here, by the way, Sirius XM Channel 159 with us across the network on a Tuesday with Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh with you as we get you set for the Major League Baseball season, which begins on Thursday at 1 o'clock, probably 3 o'clock, with some rain. My favorite season-long straight wager is Gunnar Henderson over 79.5 RBIs. All 7 projections have him over this number of 79.5. The average ranking has him going about over with about 88, maybe 89 RBIs. And he hit 82 last season as a 250 hitter. This is a guy who has the 7th best odds to win AL MVP. You know, it's possible that Gunnar Henderson, who has, again, been piping hot throughout spring, if this guy is a 275 hitter, I mean, he's just going to fly through this number. And here's the other major advantage. Last year, a lot of time, batting first or even second, projected to hit third in this lineup this season. Those RBI opportunities now with Cedric Mullins and Adley Rutschman in front of him make for a phenomenal opportunity here on Gunnar Henderson. If you're going to join me in playing Gunnar Henderson, or rather the Orioles to win the World Series, Gunnar Henderson over 79.5 RBIs is a really nice way to cover yourself on that wager, because Gunnar's going to have to be a big part of this team's success. Let's get in the Elly De La Cruz picks here, since we already talked about Hunter Green from the Reds. Look, he is electric, but I've already talked about some of the projection models that I wanted to use and rely on. And those models actually don't like Elly De La Cruz over his 39.5, 40.5 stolen bases. Respectfully, I think they're wrong. But it would be foolish of me to trust those models when I'm placing a lot of these wagers and then just kind of hand wave it because it didn't fit what I wanted to see from Elly De La Cruz. So what I'm doing is taking elevated numbers on EDC here. And I'm taking him for 50-plus steals and 60-plus steals at big-time plus money, plus 285 on the 50-plus and plus 680 on the 60-plus. He's 7-1 to lead the league in steals. I don't mind that at all. He stole 35 bases last year in 98 games. 35 bases, 98 games. The lowest projected games total I saw was 138. So that same pace would put him at 48.6. But that doesn't account for Elly De La Cruz getting better. He started red hot in June. Red hot. With that 358 on-base percentage and stole 9 bases. In September, just a few more games, the on-base percentage was 313. Stole 12. What you'll notice is there was a huge gap in batting average between June and September, but not as big of a gap in on-base percentage to June to September. He started to walk more, which is huge. Home runs don't help us, Elly. Triples don't help us. They could because he's that good. Doubles, not really. The idea is get on first and go. And he's going to do that way, way more this season. It's also important. Last year, spent a lot of time hitting fourth. Projected to hit second this season. A few extra plate appearances make the difference there. We go EDC for 50-plus and 60-plus. Craig Mish joins the show next.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
That was all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee, making that's a ref.
They still covered though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live, all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Back right here at Game Time Decisions on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh. I'm joined by Craig Mish, of course, Baseball Insider, host of Newswire here on the network. And Craig, we're getting set for another baseball season. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Can't wait. Thursday, can't get here soon enough. I'll be at a game. There's no doubt about that at this point. I think I missed one opening day the last 20 years or something like that. I just couldn't get out of it. I think it was my daughter was singing somewhere, and my wife was like, "You're gonna miss opening day, and I don't want to hear about it." And that was the only time I ever missed it, and I did. But I'll be there this year.
All right, so that's good. We'll have boots on the ground with Craig. And Craig, there's a few teams I kind of want to throw an overview on if we can. And look, people have talked the Dodgers to death. I want to talk about the Braves, who spent all of last season as the best team in baseball. And on Newswire, you had their general manager on to talk a little bit about the team heading into the season, which is awesome stuff. And I'm curious how you feel about Atlanta heading into this year, because, again, the talk of the town is the Dodgers, but the Braves, I mean, look, whether they didn't add Ohtani, and they probably will still say, hey, our roster lines up with anybody in baseball and might be better than anybody's in baseball.
Yeah, their offense is fantastic, and they were healthy for the most part last year. Acuna wins the MVP, and it's amazing, Kevin, that a team could lose Freddie Freeman and then just seemingly add another first baseman that also has a monster year in Matt Olson. They get a new catcher. They call guys up for the minors, Michael Harris. That lineup 1 through 8 or 1 through 9 is as dynamic, I think, as any team in baseball. What's really held back the Braves is sort of themselves in the end. And, it's interesting. One of the things that I asked Alex Anthopoulos on the show, Kevin, was, years ago, 10, 20 years ago, the best teams in baseball generally made it to the end. They've added all of these new wild card iterations. Mm-hmm. And I think that as we're watching the NCAA tournament, it sure feels the same in baseball, where you get to the end, they put seedings together, and then anything can happen. And it really doesn't matter where you are. You're the 1, you're the 3, you're the 5, you're the 6. Whoever gets hot at that time didn't always work like that. And now it definitely seems like it is. So the Braves' big question going into the season is, like an NCAA tournament team or like an NBA team that's just, kind of going through the motions. The Braves are going to win a lot of games. They're going to get to the postseason, but they'll be judged based on how they do in the postseason, because the last couple of years they fell flat.
And I know last year, Craig, there was a real peak of the conversation of the postseason buys and if they're actually a disadvantage. And I feel like this year could be a tipping point in that conversation. But again, that's a conversation that we'll have in October, right? And until that point, we're going to watch a team like the Braves win a ton of games and say they're going to win a World Series. And then we have to see how much we trust it when it gets to the postseason. I think a team that has, tried to pride themselves on that bar was the New York Yankees. And, last year clearly fell flat. The offseason, bringing in Soto was supposed to bring a lot of positivity. And look, sometimes this is how it goes, Craig. The negative news hits you early, and it's hit the Yankees early. With questions around Garrett Cole, people wonder if Judge is ever really going to be a fully healthy baseball player. I'm curious your thoughts and your feelings on the Yankees heading into this baseball season.
Yeah, look, they have some nice little wild cards, like players who really didn't perform last year that if they do this year could change things for them. Cortez and Carlos Rodon. I mean, those things are definitely within the realm of possibility and in play. And Juan Soto is going to have a big year for the Yankees because wherever he is, he has a big year. Like, he's a great, great player. But I just don't see it with them. Again, I think we're going down a similar road with them, an all-or-nothing type team, leaning on Judge way too much. Soto is a guy that, look, he's going to try and hit home runs. He's going to try and double, but the guy will take walks. He's got to have other guys in the lineup that are consistent behind him, and I think the Yankees are still lacking that. And without having Cole to start the season, their pitching is a little bit questionable. I don't know, Kevin. It just feels to me like we can do this every year with the Yankees, and in the end, they fall short. Sure. I don't think this year is going to be much different. I think Baltimore is better than them. I think Tampa Bay is better than them. I think Toronto has a really good chance to be better than them, too. I don't think Boston is, but I think those other teams are. So if you told me at the end of the year the Yankees won like 83 games or 82 or 80, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Well, and look, to your point, last year they won 82 games, which put them in fourth, and above them, 89 wins, 99 wins, 101 wins. The Yankees could have themselves a solid year and be third in this division. So there's a lot of difficulty there, and what that led to, Craig, was some people here locally saying, hey, go grab Blake Snell. That's not how it went. He ends up with the San Francisco Giants. I'm curious for you, though, because fans, right, react to the Blake Snell contract of, oof, that's a bad look. Guy off an NL Cy Young. You know a lot more. You speak to a lot more people. What was your reaction to how all of this stuff with Blake Snell played out, now landing with the San Francisco Giants?
Look, I mean, free agency was not pretty this offseason. A lot of guys waited to get signed, and I think that's something that's got to change. You see there's at least murmurs of some beef in the players' union. This is not a good recipe for success. I get it that the game is never going to have that free agent frenzy like the NBA or the NFL because you have a floor and you have a cap and you got to spend the money one way or the other. I mean, you could spend the minimum, but you have to spend. So therefore, everybody is out there right away figuring out who they want to get on their team. Baseball just hasn't been like that. I think it's got to change. It's not good for the game to have JD Martinez and Snell and Montgomery and so many other, by the way, other free agents not signed in January is like sort of insane.
Right.
But, from Snell's point of view, look, he got a 2-year deal. He can opt out after one. In terms of money, he went to the spot that seems to have the most money to burn right now, Kevin, in San Francisco. They went after Aaron Judge. It didn't work. They tried for Carlos Correa. It didn't work. That was like $700 million in contracts. So that should tell you the story. The Giants want to spend some money and they want to get back in this thing. Now, we could debate whether or not they did it the right way with getting Snell and Soler and Chapman. Is that going to buy you a playoff appearance or a World Series? I'm not so sure. But at least credit to the Giants for trying. They're just having a really hard time getting free agents to play in the Bay Area.
Craig, I want to ask you about a guy who looks like he might I don't know. Maybe I'm off base here. I even hesitated on finishing that sentence. I was going to say forgotten territory. Mike Trout is, for me, I feel like I don't know if it feels like just a decade of being the best in the world. Right now, other guys were there, but then the injuries crept in. But then Ohtani was there, and then they couldn't. They weren't healthy enough together. But Ohtani's completely gone. And the idea around the Angels, I mean, this is a team that's 45-1 to just win their division. There's good teams in the division, but there's not even a, hey, if they hit their ceiling convo. Are we in a spot now where Mike Trout, if he's healthy, will put up good numbers, but outside of that, we're not going to talk about Trout? Or could somebody grab him out of L.A. and he finds himself on a contender at some point during the season?
Yeah, I could see it happening. And look, you can't rule anything out in baseball. No one thought Soto would be traded a couple of years ago, and he was. Kevin, I'm on board with that. The Angels, to me, did very little this offseason, and I believe the one pitcher they signed is injured. Really no direction at this point, no farm system. And to me, I think they're in for a very long season. I think this is the kind of year for the Angels where they may have to start it over. It looked like they tried to appease Ohtani at the deadline last year and say, hey, let's go get Giolito and let's go get Matt Moore and all these other players. Randall Grichuk. It didn't work out at all, and they got rid of them all again, So I would basically be looking at the Angels as probably one of the 5 worst teams in baseball this year, and I just wonder what would happen at the trade deadline if some team dangled some prospects for Trout. Would I say it's a lock that he's traded? No, but I would tell you that if he is, Kevin, my gosh, this is a 100-loss team this year. There's no doubt about that.
And again, I bring that up because when you're talking baseball futures, we made this point with Joe Pisapia, there's the rosters now, but the baseball's deadline to me is completely different than everybody else's. I mean, you can bank on really, really impactful players getting moved every Major League Baseball deadline, it feels. And, of course, Craig will be covering that when the time comes. But for now, he'll be enjoying opening day. Craig, we appreciate your time here on Game Time Decisions.
Of course, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff there. We'll be right back here on SportsGrid, breaking down the Major League Baseball season.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, they were called a foul.
Oh my God.
That was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats and fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the rim.
All you heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions, Kevin Walsh with you here, getting you set for the Major League Baseball season. And there is no one better to talk to for the day-to-day betting of baseball than Donnie Rightside, of course, himself. And Ben Stevens will be on a regular basis hitting the full card of Major League Baseball on the early line right here on SportsGrid, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern. DRS, how we feeling?
Feeling good, ready to go for Major League Baseball season. Unceremonious start to Major League Baseball season because I don't know if opening day is this week or if is it last week or what's going on. But one thing's for sure, over the summer months here, that day-to-day grind, I really miss that, and I can't wait for baseball to get back into my life.
It is a good point, and as tempting as it is to just spend this time talking about the preposterousness of the baseball start, we could instead talk about that it went well for you right out of the gates. Some Ohtani RBI shots there. And I've, of course, to the early line with you for a while. We still do money line together. So I've really enjoyed even watching some of the day-to-day betting for you kind of switch your eye, right? Going from a team total to hit props to RBI shots. Are you figured out already as to, on a day-to-day basis, which markets you're hoping to attack?
Yeah, the evolution of handicapping, at least from myself, and I always preach this to people. I've been around this game for a long time, and it wasn't too long ago, which I guess now maybe it would be long ago, about 10 years or so, where you're just betting sides or maybe totals to baseball games. Then they go over to team totals, and the market last year that I found so exciting, so much fun, and so profitable, Kevin, was the RBI numbers, and even going from 1 RBI up to 2 RBI and the differences that those pay out. So the evolution of a handicapper such as myself, it's changing every single year. I'll probably be looking at team totals, but much, much more into that RBI market. And Kevin, I'll probably find markets this year that I didn't know existed last year and try to explore those. Never stop learning and never stop handicapping yourself when you're taking a look at games like baseball, because every single year new markets come into play that you might think you have an edge in, where maybe years ago it was just a money line play simplicity on a game or maybe a first 5 innings wager.
Now, I know as the year carried on, you started to angle up some of the single props. I know if Dinger Tuesday shows its face once again, you'll be ready to go in that market as well. The one thing I know, and anybody that's followed Donnie's work, is timing matters. According to Donnie, the college basketball season began about 3 weeks ago, or maybe a month at this rate here. Exactly. So for you, Major League Baseball-wise, Donnie, I know you'll be breaking games down right away, but what is kind of the jump-off point you're expecting here with this baseball season?
Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know what Kevin's talking about, I'm usually a slow play into seasons here. When I want to say betting real money, that's the wrong way to terminize it. But when the numbers come into play and you think you have an advantage, NFL's a little bit different. Maybe wait a week or two there, but on a week-to-week basis, you can sort of exploit some of those edges, but it's not all numbers driven. As we know, Kevin, there are sites that you can use in college basketball once teams get about 20 games in where you have them nailed down. And it's the same thing with Major League Baseball. How are you going to absolutely bet a pitcher early in the season when you're not sure how they're going to start out? But you know what I like to bet a pitcher, Kevin? When I got 15 games under his belt and I know exactly what his splits would be home and away, how he likes to pitch in elevation environments like Colorado. Can he pitch in those environments? Or how does he do in, let's just say, bandboxes like Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philadelphia or Yankee Stadium in New York? The sweet spot for me, honestly, is May right through to August 31st. Because once you start getting around that trade deadline in that range, things start to change where the winners turn into losers and the taxes go on the teams that need to win. And you pretty much know what teams are basically angling for next offseason, a higher draft pick and unloading players on their team. So once you get through about a month in the season in April, also, Kevin, that's when the weather starts to warm up and the hitting prospects come around at that point as well.
We may get into weather a bit. That this sport, baseball, is why throughout football season, I've often said, Donnie, tell me what the weather is. I trust Donnie's weather more than anybody else's because it matters a lot to the baseball caps. But before we get to degrees, let's talk about weighted on base average. This is something that, again, and I'm sure you'll, really set the table for people. And I just think it's important to do, Donnie, because I've told you this before. Plenty of times, my father listened to the early line, and he'd be like, now, what is this weighted on base average thing that Donnie's talking about? He's familiar with batting average, on base percentage here. But I know that is a key number from a hitter's perspective, and I know there are key numbers pitchers-wise, that you really focus in on to find your advantages?
And you can also point out there, Kevin, in a similar fashion, ISO power numbers. What you're doing is basically isolating the power of an individual at their at-bats. If you love RBI props, what's better than a guy who's going to drive the baseball? And you say, well, he only averages 1 hit a game, but if he does make contact, it's going to go a long way. So those matter. And also, you can match it in opposite directions, as you just talked about. Weighted on base percentage from a pitcher. What does he struggle with? Well, look, he's a right-handed pitcher. His weighted on base percentage is 380 or higher to left-handed batters. So what are you going to look for in that day in the lineup going against said pitcher? Let me see the lefties in the lineup. Let me see how many they have, because let's just say you like a team total. Let's use the Yankees. It's 4.5 here. You want an average that says, you know what? If this pitcher's on the mound struggles with lefties, oh boy, look at the Yankees. 6 left-handed batters out of 9 possible in the lineup today. Those are the games you start to look at and try to differentiate who you're going to bet. And then you try to find out a Giancarlo Stanton, a Judge on that aspect. How are they doing against those pitchers? Now, the one thing I really don't look at, which a lot of people do, Kevin, is how have they done against that same pitcher in the past? I don't care about that. I'm almost looking at that pitcher just as an obsolete face right there and say, what are his numbers this year? What are his numbers, Kevin, in the last 30 to 60 days? Which brings up an even better point there, right? Because if you start out the season red hot in April, let's just say a player is a left-handed batter against righties. Kevin, he's hitting 600 against right-handed pitching. But then you take a look at June and July, he's not so good. Well, if you average out April, May, and June, and it's still really good, I don't like that here. I'd rather remove April and look at the last 60 days and say, oh, no, he's struggling. Let's move on to another pitcher, another batter going up against a certain pitcher at this point. So also, throughout the points of the season, those change. I love to look at past 30 days and 60 days more than those season totals. Because, again, just to keep it simple, just because a guy is really hot in the month of August, you might be able to ride that out. But what happens if he struggled in April, May, June, and July? You might wipe him off of your calendar in that whole month of August. He's raking. I'm like, well, his numbers don't make sense. Yes, they do. Adjust the numbers as you move throughout the season.
It's one of the keys that I've seen from Donnie. This is the ultimate, what have you done for me lately?
Correct.
Right? And you could take it from a team angle. There was a point in the calendar year where the Tampa Bay Rays, every number looked great because of April. And then we hit that little middle stretch there, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't the same. And those team totals started to go under, and it changes the math a little bit. But that then begs the question, Donnie. And again, that's why I pointed out, I know there's a ramp-up point for you, but you're still involved day to day. What will you be trying to use here to navigate that, back end of March through April waters?
Here's what you're looking for. And again, it does deal a lot with winter. And that's what we're going to have in the month of March. It's going to be a lot of baseball played, in the northern hemisphere. Let's say northern hemisphere here. Let's just say in the northern part of the United States, where you're going to get temperatures in degrees, Kevin, 35, 40 degrees. That's not hitting weather here. The ball travels better when the heat is on. Now, granted, as I said that, there are environments that you can bet early in the season. Hence, teams that play in the South. Teams that play in the domes. You're going to look at teams on the West Coast. San Diego, not necessarily Hitter's Ballpark, but they're not going to have 30-degree weather in their ballpark. The Dodgers as well. Those are the ones you want to take advantage of. But from a betting perspective, what has worked in the past, it's not even necessarily handicapping. Here's what I always try to preach. In the month of April, and you can even use this as any sport, Kevin, you don't know you're bad until your record tells you you're bad. Everybody starts the season with high hopes. Let's make a playoff run. So that first month of April, you're getting the best of the best out of everybody. Case in point, everybody thinks the Dodgers are going to run away with the National League. They play 2 games. They're 1-1. It's not as if they're going to win every single game they play, even if they're favored probably every single game they play. The reason I bring that up is ride some of those hot streaks, yes, but take the plus money in April because you're looking at a series here, again, with the Dodgers. They might be in a series minus 400 favorites. So if you're a dog at a 300 price, win one of those and you cash in on those. So my thought process in the month of April is forget about the sides and laying juice. Just take the plus money. More times than not, that bad baseball team, Kevin, let's just say it's the Pirates, they might play 500 in April because they're going to hang around. Pitchers aren't stretched out. Bullpen's a little bit messy. The weather isn't there. But once you get into June, July, and August, those teams know they're bad, and that's when the numbers really come into play. Take the dogs, Kevin, early in the season.
And with that, though, Donnie, of fading the Dodgers, if we're talking futures market, for you, the value appears to be beyond L.A. at last look. I mean, this team is nearly plus 300 to win a World Series, which is incredibly impressive when you consider how strongly the Atlanta Braves are booked in this market. What has caught your attention futures-wise?
Here's what you have to understand, and I guess it's similarities to the NBA. If you take a look at Major League Baseball, does the regular season matter? Absolutely. But it's apparent that in Major League Baseball, once you get through the regular season and you get in that quick, whether it's a 3-game series, a 5-game series, or a 7-game series, pitching really matters, and sometimes the best teams don't win it. Case in point, the Atlanta Braves in the National League. Looks like every year they're the best team. They get in the playoffs, and they get beat. Now, here's what I like and how you can maybe adjust those numbers. The Dodgers probably will be the best team in baseball in the regular season because of the strength and the depth of their team. They can out-hit anybody. But once you get to the playoffs, Kevin, you're going to face ace after ace after ace. So if you want to say to myself, you know what, Donnie, what's a team outside of the Dodgers that we can take? If you're just looking in the National League, of course it's going to be the Braves, a plus 450 price. The Phillies at a 15-1 and the Giants at 45-1. You say, well, did you just throw a dart here like at 3 different levels? No, the Braves have an unbelievable 1-2 punch. The Philadelphia Phillies, an unbelievable 1-2 punch. And late to the party now, adding Blake Snell, are the Giants at 45-1. It's not about the regular season. You don't cash these tickets at the end of that. You cash it through the playoffs. Take the teams with great rotations on their 1-2 punches. They'll give you a chance against anybody.
And if the Dodgers meet expectations, talked about this, but those buys have not worked out.
True.
In recent memory, so if that plays out, I know we don't have enough time, so I'll just mention, because I know, Donnie, as far as AL MVP, Soto and Judge at the top, good luck, cancel each other out. Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Ohtani at the top, good luck, they cancel each other out. Those guys are done before the season begins. Donnie, appreciate it as always. Make sure you catch those baseball breakdowns daily on the early line. We'll be right back.
Tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
That was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee, making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did. They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart Team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game Time Decisions here with you on a Tuesday night. I'm Kevin Walsh. Been able to talk to Donnie Rightside, getting you set for the day today. Talk a little Joe PCP, a little Craig Mish, a little Tom Vecchio. It's been a blast. One more to go. And that is our good friend Dave Shatterpan, the consig. You knew he would be baseball ready. You knew it would be an AL East team. Consig, how are you?
Great. You know, I couldn't come with the Yankee stuff. I don't want to pander to the host too much.
Okay.
I wore the Yankee stuff last week, right? Threw you off.
Right.
And the other choice was for, the esteemed producer of the show. But I don't have any national stuff because really, why else would you have the national stuff? It's been a while. The hats, when they won the World Series back then, I mean, they got gold in them and all those other things. They're like, it's ancient history. But what better than to show up to talk about baseball with a team from Florida that just goes over their season win total every year? Doesn't matter what you make the number. That's it. It's the Rays. Come on. Look at that logo.
Razor sharp. Razor sharp. Looks good. A little Devil Rays action there.
Yeah.
So far, Consig, I've given out 13 of 15 season-long bets when it comes to the baseball season. I saved 2 for you. I'll recap the ones you've missed in a moment.
Please.
But the 2 I saved, I felt like you'd have some fun with. We'll start here. Shohei Ohtani to lead baseball in RBI, 15-1. I know Consig can absolutely vouch for this angle.
Yeah.
This is plus 650 on DraftKings, and he's listed as the favorite. Now, that's probably DK making a mockery of a number, if we're being honest, but I'm basically getting an all-time odds boost here by betting it at 15-1. We've got 2 RBI already on the board, thanks to the Soul Series.
Yes.
And if you look at the other folks around Ohtani, this 15-1 is the same number as Freddie Freeman. 0 projections put him over 100. Soto doesn't clear 110. I'm talking about a max projection looking at 7 different projection sets. A max out. Nobody puts Soto over 110. Nobody puts Austin Riley over 110. Nobody puts Pete Alonso over 115. Olsen doesn't go over 120. Judge hits 120. You know, as the highest number I saw? Shohei, 129. 2 of them actually had him over 120. In this lineup, with this projection, with this protection as well, give me 15-1 Ohtani, lead the league in RBI.
It's in the 2-hole, K-Duck. You want a 2-hole
That's
hitter?
right.
This is
So
strong.
is Judge. Or Judge is the 3 now, I guess. Right? But that's where these guys hit. That's where they kind of hit.
To lead.
Jordan's up to a 2-hole.
Wow. Okay.
We got 2 on the board.
All we got to do is keep this guy on the field. I think you're going to have action. I mean, all we got to do is keep him on the field. Injuries.
Which?
Other things.
Other things. Other things. Well, I'll tell you, that's one of the big benefits, though, now, is him being DH only, right? It's just hitting, right? So you would hope less, injury risk there as well. Ohtani RBI leader. Speaking of injury risk, I saved the best for last.
There we go. Please don't
this
tell me
show
you
almost
Stanton.
began.
Please, there better not be a Stanton future right now, please.
Season specials, I had 2 listed.
Uh-oh.
I got rid of the one that involved Stanton.
Thank you.
But I was going to take him, Soto, and Judge for 30+ at plus 240. I got rid of it because I'm the most unbiased man in the history of sports media. Here's what I did not get rid of.
Oh, God.
Mike Trout, 40+ home runs and 3+ stolen bases, plus 650. Let's start with this.
Wow.
The steals are a lock.
Done.
A dangerous word, a lot of people saying.
Yeah.
The steals would be a risk-free investment. I'm not worried about it. You can't find his steals over under. Don't worry about it. He stole a base in spring. Ron Washington, Angels GM, wants more stealing.
Yes.
So if we could agree that he's going to steal 3 bases, guess what?
Okay. We can.
He's plus 300 to hit 40 home runs on the same exact book. We're getting more than double the number. So we've already done a nice job for ourselves here. We've already done a nice job. If you look at the projections that I've been looking through, of 7, 5 have him getting to 35 or more. Now, while none have him getting to 40, that's because we are expecting some injury. But we're getting a nice number.
Yes.
If we had all these projections getting him to 40, we wouldn't be getting 3-1 or plus 650 in this instance.
Right.
Here's the trick.
Okay.
Ohtani's gone. So now Trout can DH if he's ever flirting with injury and stay in that lineup. Because if you're the Angels, all that matters is Trout playing. You have nothing else. Give me Mike Trout, plus 650 consig, 40-plus home runs, 3-plus swipes.
We got to keep this guy on the field. I mean, this guy's my daughter told me a knock-knock joke where I want to use it right now. Knock-knock, who's there? Disguise. Disguise who? This guy's killing me with these futures that you're doing right now because you got this guy that can't stay on the field, and he don't have no protection. But if he's going to do it, I think this could be the year he does it, right? This is my Trout's year to stay healthy. Like you said, DH, when he doesn't have to play the field. You know I like unders. I mean, I always like unders. And you went overs. This is scary. I agree with you with the stolen bases. Okay, this is good. We got to keep this guy. Can we get at least 30? So we got a sweat in this. I don't want to have him missing 2 months or any of that stuff.
Consig, I'm not going to pretend that Trout doesn't have an injury history.
Yeah.
Last year only played 82 games.
Yeah.
Season before that, 119, hit 40 home runs on the dot.
Let's go.
Now, the season before that, he only played 36. The year before that, he played 53. That was 53 out of 60. That was 53 out of 60, though.
How many home
runs?
runs?
The year before that, it was 134. Then the year before that, it was 140.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just saying, I've got multiple 40-plus home runs within his last 5 seasons.
Okay.
He has a better chance to stay healthy with that DH spot being open. You
Yes,
like
sir.
unders? What would I be if
Why
I
would
didn't
you
give you
pitch
some?
to him, though? Aren't you concerned that he's going to get the Barry
why'd
Bonds
that-
treatment?
Dave,
He's never going to see a
Dave.
strike.
Dave, why'd they ever pitch to him? He was winning MVPs way before Shohei Ohtani had any idea he was going to play in the majors. Why'd they ever pitch to him? They pitch. They pitch,
right.
Dave.
All right.
They pitch.
Let's give him.
They
I
do.
hope you're right.
Hey, it's plus 650, right? Plus 650.
That's good. You
Plus
always
650.
do the due diligence of shopping for the best price, too.
Now-
That's one thing when you come with these plays. I don't even have to ask you, what does this other book have? Did you look around?
Yeah, you know how it goes.
You do the work. You actually check around
right.
and get the best price. That's what we need.
You want an under win total or an under player?
Oh, you got an under win total?
I got a
You got
few.
What? Breaking
I'll give you
news.
2 of them.
Sam, clip this.
I'll give you 2 of them.
Give them to
I'll
me.
give you 2 of them.
Please.
The first one, straightforward. I think you'll like it. Braves under 110. Or, excuse me, 101, not 110, I wish.
I was gonna
Under
say, you
101.
found 110. We got to come to New York or wherever you're at.
No.
I'm bringing, you
No,
found under
101.
110. We're coming. We're bringing the bag, too. Okay.
Under 101 and a half.
I see what you did there. I want this to happen. Why? Why are we? Because of the high number? Why?
I mean, largely 100-plus win totals go under. They added 5 wins on the number from last year. They didn't add any players. So in order to get through this number, everybody has to repeat having a career year and stay healthy? Feels unlikely.
Think about that division, though. They get to play the Nationals a lot.
I like that division.
You like the
And
Mets?
I'll tell you this.
The Mets?
I think the division has juice. Let me pull this up for you.
Okay.
Hold on. I'll find it
The
for
Marlins?
you. You know, the notes are robust. They were 35-17 in the division last year. 35-17.
It's pretty good.
Was great. Can I get him to 31-21?
Sign me
That's
up.
still great.
That might get us under the 101 and a half. Okay.
So now here's the wacky one. But I think you'll enjoy this.
Please.
Brewers under 13.5 wins by the end of April. Plus 110, by the way.
Oh, I love the
30
month
games.
bets. I tried to do this when I was in the room. I was met with nothing but resistance because they said, we're not really looking at this, Dave. I said, well, why not? Because come May, we're going to need stuff for June and July and August to get us through. Monthly season win totals. How many games they got, K-Dub? In
30.
Okay, so we got to be under 500. Do we have a tough schedule? More games on the road?
So, Dave, I'll let you do it. Maybe I'm biased. I already placed the bet, but I am the most unbiased man in the history of sports media. I'll give you the series. The location, the team, the length of games. You tell me if they are favored to win the series. At the Mets for 3.
No.
Versus the Twins, home for 2.
Pick them.
Home against the Mariners for 3.
Depending on the pitching matchups, they're not favored in that series.
At the Reds for 4.
No, pick them. Small dogs.
At the Orioles for 3.
No, definitely not.
Home against the Padres for 3.
Maybe 2 out of 3 favorites. Small, pick them. Small.
At the Cardinals for 3.
I'm so down on the Cardinals. Depending on the pitching matchups, that might be a pick 'em, but they're still going to be dogs in that series.
At the Pirates for 4.
Don't even start messing me with the Pirates. They're going to be dogs. Pick them.
Home against the Yanks for 3.
Yankees. I can't. I mean, they're going to be dogs in that one, too. If they get Cole one time, they're definitely dogs. Not Cole.
2 games against the Rays left.
Wow.
That's all that's left. That's all
that
that's
sounds
left.
like
0
wins.
series.
12 wins.
0 of them.
12.
0. Not 1, not 2. 0. Dave sees them as a definitive favorite. 0.
No, we just did it. I mean, that's how you do it in a room. Let's sit down and do this. Let's come out with a number. Right there, the number's 14. 30 games, 14 and 16. At best, we're under 13.5. Plus money?
We're under 13.5. Plus money.
Plus money? This
Slap it in Rangers under 88.5. Royals 74.5.
Under Rangers? You don't like
under
Rangers.
Rangers.
Rangers team. What? You're against the world with the Royals. I like that. Everybody's on this Royals over. Yeah. Who's coming with that? A baseball guy only. Why the Rangers?
The Rangers World Series bets are a lot better than their division bets. DeGrom's not healthy. Scherzer's not healthy. Langford and Carter, we'll see how it goes. I know Carter was great in the postseason. I get it. I don't care.
Okay.
Their second and third best hitters are rookies. Like Adolis can hit for pop, but he's not a consistent guy. Simeon's never going to finish with a top 3 MVP season again. Come on. He's not.
I like that guy.
He's a good player. I'll put it to you like this.
How
many guys on that lineup? How many guys in that lineup are minus money to make an All-Star game? 1.
That's
it?
it?
1. It's Seager's the only one. Go through it. Go through it. You putting Wyatt Langford minus money?
I don't know.
Minus?
He's pretty good.
You booking it? We'll talk. We'll talk.
We'll look. I don't know. I pause on the Rangers.
We'll talk.
That was an unbelievable sight.
Come on, people. We'll close out the baseball special next.
They go into the Pac-12 tournament, they win it, then they go into the NCAAs, and they put up a bucket load of points. They have looked fantastic. That's not the team that I saw in the regular season.
All those people that had all that extra time because of those COVID seasons is going to be gone, and you're not going to really have the 23, 24, 25-year-old basketball players running around anymore. You're not going to have it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
The books have so much information. Now, the gamblers do as well, but it's coming down to sometimes coaching, sometimes, a good play, a good call. I mean, the block last night that was a block, it was called a foul.
Oh my God.
My God, that was
Dude,
all
we would
ball.
see that highlight forever.
Yes.
And instead, we
got robbed.
We'll never see it again.
Got robbed by a referee making, that's a ref.
They still covered, though.
They did.
They did cover.
The Bostonian versus the book.
I think JMU is going to knock off Wisconsin. I think JMU, with the way that they can score the ball and spread you out, Wisconsin struggles to defend. They're in the bottom third in defensive efficiency.
Iowa State's not going to beat you with offense necessarily. They're just not. Illinois will beat you with offense. I like Illinois. I don't love them enough to beat UConn. You got to guard at some point. Give me Connecticut to make the Final Four.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca.
I would be willing to bet the under 2.5 goals.
Fantasy sports today.
Especially in head-to-head formats in fantasy, I think I'm going to go with Juan Soto.
Game time decisions.
People don't like it. I don't really care. I cannot believe anybody is betting the Clippers at this number.
Betting above the
All
rim.
I've heard you say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Nobody has been more profitable as a dog than Shaka Smart team.
Winning back-to-back road games. I don't care if they're playing Topeka High. I wouldn't give them any chance whatsoever.
In-game live, prime time.
Back-to-back, just utterly stinker quarters.
In-game live, overtime.
Honestly, as you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Game time decisions, the baseball preview that you needed to get set for opening day on Thursday. Tomorrow, Joe Ranieri will have you covered right here on Game Time Decisions. Up next is In Game Live. Thursday, Bracket Central live from the city. I will see you Friday right back here for more Bracket Central Sweet 16 coverage with Donnie Rightside. We've gone through 15 future bets. But if I had to pick one, I wanted to pair it with the World Series pick, which is the Baltimore Orioles at 14-1. My favorite player prop with the Baltimore Orioles is Gunnar Henderson over 79.5 RBI. Hit this number last year with 82. All projections like him over with about 87, 88, where they expect him to land. And I think it could be even higher than that. Red hot in spring. The batting average last year was about 255. Take that up to 275 this year, which is not a crazy thing to ask for a guy with top 10 odds to an American League MVP. And all of a sudden, more balls are in play, more guys are scoring. Plus, a lot of time spent batting leadoff or batting second for Baltimore, projected to hit third this season with Adley Rutschman and Cedric Mullins in front of Gunnar Henderson. 79.5 RBI for Gunnar Henderson, the favorite bet for you there. The favorite win total, of course, Braves under that 101.5. People are saying they like that Milwaukee Brewers month, end of April, under 13.5. Now, if we can remove this for a minute here, because we spend 2 hours, and again, most unbiased man history of sports media. Orioles win the World Series, a Toronto Blue Jay to win AL MVP, and it's hard work. But that's what I have to do for you people. But I have 20 seconds to remind everybody that the New York Yankees likely go 162-0. Carlos Rodon is at a Cy Young right here. Bounce back special. Could be Aaron Boone. Could be Aaron Boone for American League Manager of the Year. Soto and Judge split the MVP. Astros in for a wake-up call on Thursday. Nestor Cortez, bring it home, cuzzo. The Yanks are back in a big way. We'll see you there.